are on the way for later this week. I'm meteorologist Jonathan Rocco with all the details for the Jersey Shore. Fall is a transition season with a lot of ups and downs, and the past 5 days has been proof of that. We had temperatures warming and warming and warming going up to this past weekend. Then we had that cold front come through and we took a nosedive down to the 40s to start off this weekend. Temperatures are going to be rising again as we go into this upcoming weekend, but this time it looks like we will stay in the 50s going up to and potentially right through Thanksgiving, dealing with temperatures near to slightly above normal over the course of the next 7+ days. For today, we're a little bit below normal, highs in the upper 40s and lower 50s, northeasterly wind at around 5 to 15 miles per hour, stronger for the immediate coastline, where winds will be closer to that 15, maybe even a little bit higher than that miles per hour. So the rain will be winding down this morning, and we will be left with a drier afternoon, but a cloudy afternoon, but no rain to worry about for the evening commute home from work or school, so you won't need that umbrella for much longer here for today. However, you may need it going into Friday night and Saturday. A quick update on the timing of the rain chances there. It looks like Friday should remain dry during the day. We do have some rain showers that'll be coming our way Friday night going into Saturday morning. Now, there's going to be some disturbance, some weak energy passing down to our south. The question is, how strong is it? How far north does it get? And how quick does the cold front to our north work its way into the area? We could be looking at rain showers ending very early Saturday morning or lingering into the mid-morning hours. So we'll keep you updated on that. But it looks like Friday will be a dry day during the daytime hours with highs in the upper 50s, middle 50s right through the weekend and going into the beginning of next week. And we will start to see more sun return for Sunday. That looks like the sunniest day and the best day of the weekend so far. But stay tuned for updates on that on social media, and make sure you check out Joe's 24/7 live stream as well, where you can get the latest weather videos and other information as well. Have a great day, everybody.
Come to the Ventnor City Twilight Holiday Parade presented by Auto Lenders on Saturday, December 6th. It's sure to jingle all the way. Start your evening at 4 p.m. on the corner of Weymouth and Ventnor Avenues with crafts, eats, and drinks by local vendors. The holiday parade will then kick off at 5 p.m. on Ventnor Avenue, running from New Haven to Nashville Avenues. Santa and Mrs. Claus will be there, along with a performance by the Mummers, sponsored by the stores at Ventnor Plaza. Can't make the parade? We'll be live streaming the event on Ventnor City's website and Facebook pages too. The holiday spirit continues after the parade also. Go to the Ventnor Square Theater for Santa, balloon artists, and more. That's the Ventnor City Holiday Parade presented by Auto Lenders on Saturday, December 6th. Use the hashtag #OnlyInVentnor. New Jersey is more than double the rate of sea level rise across the globe. We're at 17.6 inches from 1911 to 2019 here. And this chart shows that we're seeing many more times coastal flooding events in Sandy Hook and Atlantic City now than we did in the 1950s and 60s. I mean, it's a multiple of 6 here, the number of coastal flooding events we're seeing now compared to then. You know, we're seeing more properties at risk of flooding. Now, why is that? It's partially due to climate change. It's partially due to that we just have more people along the beaches. Anywhere where you see those oranges are properties newly exposed to flooding since 1985, and that's the majority of properties that are at risk of frequent flooding or annual flooding. We can break this down by county, and Ocean County and Cape May County in particular have seen huge increases in its number of homes that have been built in flood-prone areas since the mid-1980s here. So we're seeing just generally more properties that would flood if there's a hurricane, 62 to 86,000. Again, part of that's climate change and sea level rise. Part of that is just more people at the shore. And homeowners insurance does not cover flood damage from hurricanes. It's important to know that here. So again, this isn't all climate change. We look at the annual sea level rise since 1960 in Atlantic City, and this can be used for most of the Jersey Shore. That is the dashed black line on this chart. It's running on the lower end of all those color lines you see on the chart, the yellows and the reds and the magentas. that means that we're on the lower end of sea level rise projections here. We're still seeing sea level rise, but we're not seeing it at the higher rates. So what is due to climate change? Well, 40% of it, really, it's due to thermal expansion. In other words, as the water heats up, it expands here. We're seeing melting ice sheets and melting glaciers as our climate warms. But 60% of it is not due to climate change in New Jersey. It's due to land sinking, due to the glaciers we used to have in the northern part of the state, which have retreated a long time ago, but we're still seeing the shifting land from that, and other causes for sinking land, mainly the Kirkwood-Cohansey Aquifer being drained out to use for our drinking water and for our farming, which we need here. But if you're in Ocean, Atlantic, or Cape May counties, we're seeing sinking land as that aquifer, that underground pool of water, does shrink here and narrow. So there's a multitude of reasons for the sea level rise, and then that parlays into the coastal flooding as well. Yes, we're seeing more coastal flooding. Part of it's due to climate change. Part of it isn't, and part of it's due to man-made causes outside of climate change, such as the fact that most of our beach towns are densely populated with homes and sidewalks and roads, and that water just can't go anywhere. We need to build, and we are, for the most part, building more resilient to get that water out quicker. Here's another look at sea level rise prediction. So the red line is where we are in the 2025. The black dot is about where we are at the sea level rise. Again, on that lower end of the projections. And if you were to take this out to the year 2100, we would be somewhere at about, likely, there's an 83% chance we're at or above 3 feet of sea level rise by 2100. Now, drought. This is interesting because we haven't seen more drought, but we've seen more extreme drought and more extreme wet periods too. This goes back to 1895, and we see a good balance between dry periods and wet periods. However, if you look at the intensity of the reds on the upper part of the chart or the intensity of the blues on the bottom part of the chart, you'll see them getting more intense, those colors, as you go from left to right here, especially with the drought we had in 2024 into early 2025, which prompted a drought warning by the state. They set the policy, and we were in an extreme drought, or a level 3 of 4 drought, by the United States Drought Monitor. So here's a look at our temperatures for the state of New Jersey throughout its period of record. This goes back to 1895. You see that upward trend, but you see that, hey, compared to this black line, that's the average line, we aren't all that much higher. But that's the 1991 to 2020 average. That's what we as meteorologists say when we're talking about temperatures being above or below average. Hey, this September day is 5 degrees above average. We're referring to the 91 to 2020 climate average. That is re-upped every 10 years, and it goes off a 30-year period. So in 2030, we'll look at a 2001 to 2030 climate average. But look what happens when we look at the entire period of record. Now we see a lot of years that are above this entire period of record average in the past couple of decades. And if you go back to the first 30 years of temperatures here in New Jersey, that average was 50.6. We haven't been there since the mid-1980s. We haven't had a year that would be average for, let's say, 1900 since the mid-1980s here, and we're only getting warmer. So it's important to know your time period because we have different averages based on what you might see. So it's always good when you're looking at something pertaining to climate change, not weather, but climate change, to know what the average time period is. Here's another way of seeing it, and this is from Ed Hawkins' Warming Stripes. Climate Central, which is in Princeton, New Jersey, uses this a lot, and you see more red as you go from left to right on the screen. Not only are we seeing some of our hottest years on record in recent decades, but it's been persistently above average as well. In fact, we don't see a blue on this map, on this chart, on this map until about the year 2000 or so, and that's looking at the entire period of record. So that average is the entire period of record, not the past 30 years. Now, assuming current emissions, where our average temperatures are heading are further south, assuming a moderate emission scenario here. So assuming the way it is, our summers will feel more like Charlottesville, Virginia in 2060, and then Augusta, Georgia by 2100. Again, I'm not saying this is a problem, but I'm just saying that this is what we're seeing. when it comes to precipitation, it looks a little more muddled, a little more hanging around that black line, that 1895 to 2024 average. However, we actually have seen more rainfall in recent decades here across the area. Not by much, but by a noticeable amount still. Snowfall, this is for Newark. And this goes back to the mid-1800s here. We have data back to then, and that's why I'm using this. And you see a long decline downward. In the mid to late 1800s, you could expect about 75% more snow than what we see now in Newark. And this is true for a number of different locations across New Jersey. We have, since 2000, seen a little bit of a gain in snowfall, but the longer-term trend has been less snow. Why is that? Well, because we're seeing heavier snow. We're seeing more snow falling at once. And we're not seeing as much snow, in November or late March, where those snowfall totals are usually less. In other words, when it snows, it really snows. And when it rains, it's been more likely to pour as well. Now, hurricanes is kind of split. We are seeing more major hurricanes, category 3, 4, or 5 hurricanes, and more rapidly intensifying hurricanes, which means at least 35-mile-an-hour increase within 24 hours. And on those extreme rapid intensifications, at least 58 miles an hour increase in 24 hours, we're seeing that increase there too. Now, what we're not seeing are just more tropical cyclones and hurricanes. We've been pretty consistent. Now, what you're seeing on this chart here on the lower right in the red is the number of landfalling hurricanes. That's been about consistent, about 2 a year. Now, what you're seeing in the green and the orange are the total number of hurricanes. The orange line is adjusted for the what we call pre-satellite era. So from 1859 or 1860, I should say, until the mid-1960s, we didn't have satellites in the sky to see a hurricane that might just be small in the open Atlantic, and there's no boats going past there. Of course, now we can see that with satellite. That yellow line, that orange line, adjusts for it. And we really haven't seen much of an increase. So you have to look at the adjusted line from 1860 until it ends about 1965, 1970 or so, and then look at the green line, and you see we don't have much of a change.
I love going to the beach with my family, but sometimes I worry what the conditions are going to be like. Is there any way I can find out ahead of time?
The regional associations within the Integrated Ocean Observing System have launched websites and apps where people can go to check beach and coastal conditions. For instance, along the shores of the Pacific Ocean, the Backyard Buoy app is available. In the Great Lakes, check out Seagull. And in the Mid-Atlantic and elsewhere, live beach webcams are popping up.
I love fishing. I need to know what the weather's like before I go out. What happens if it changes while I'm out there? Safety's my #1 priority.
The regional associations within the IUs are also supporting apps and websites for fishing and boating, like the Mariner's Dashboard in the Northeast and a boating app in the Caribbean. To discover more about ocean and coastal conditions, visit the portals of the regional association in your area or anywhere you are visiting.
From college essays to graduate statements to career transitions, Jennifer Ansbach Coaching helps every learner take the next step with confidence. Whether you're a high school senior preparing for college, a graduate school applicant, or returning to school after time away, your words can open doors. Write, revise, rise. Visit JenniferAnsbach.com to get started. That's Jennifer, ANSBACH.com. Thank you for stopping by the Cup of Joe Weather and Drone booth at the League of Municipalities Conference. I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci, certified broadcast and certified digital meteorologist. I hope you got to take in and enjoy all the offerings we have for your municipality.
Surely Safe program is your white glove weather concierge. We're in your streets to talk about weather and emergency messaging, all with the goal of keeping your residents more prepared and saving them money through the FEMA Community Rating System. Try out one of our drone programs. Whether you need videos or photos for your event or need your staff to be trained in their FAA Part 107 license, we can provide both here at our company. And if you're interested in reaching a weather-focused audience right here in the state, you can advertise with Cup of Joe Weather and Drone. Whether it's advertisements in our streaming weather channel or throughout our video or social media content, you will get great reach at a great price. Thanks again for stopping by our booth at the New Jersey League of Municipalities. We'll hope to talk to you soon.
The Northern Lights dazzled the sky on Tuesday night. Can we do it again in Jersey on Wednesday night? Let's talk about it. It's meteorologist Joe Martucci here. Beautiful colors from Dan Forshaw in Summers Point in Atlantic County here. You see those pillars of pink in the middle of your screen there. And in North Wildwood, it was a large area of pink and even some greens and blues from @RumRunner on social media with his long exposure camera. Now, last night, the aurora was actually to the north of us. However, if you look to the northern sky, you would see it. But if you were in southern Greenland or northern Canada, all you'd have to do is just look straight up and you would see it right there in the sky. But for us, it was visible. You just had to look to the north. Now, last night we were in what's called a G4 geomagnetic storm. This is similar to the Saffir-Simpson scale for hurricanes. There's 5 categories, and the higher category you go, the stronger it is. We were at a G4 yesterday, which means the aurora will move even further towards the equator and it will become very bright and very active, seen as low as Alabama and Northern California, and we certainly saw that. Now, this is the forecast for Wednesday night. Now, we're in that red line through New Jersey. That's the view line. That's where, in theory, you could see it just looking straight up. More than likely, though, you would have to look to the north. But there's a catch to this. We look at our G-scale forecast from NOAA. We actually get to a G4 from 2 to 5 p.m. on our Wednesday. By the time we go towards 5 to 8 p.m., and this is all Eastern time, it dips down to a 2. Now, this is a forecast, not a definite, but it might be that this geomagnetic storm comes a little too early in the day for us to see it. Now, here's the good news. If there is going to be a geomagnetic storm overhead and the aurora, at least in theory, is visible, we should be clear enough in the Jersey Shore, pretty much anywhere from Monmouth County on south, where you would be able to see it. That being said, can we see it tonight? The answer is, well, possibly. best chance is going to be immediately after sunset when the sun sinks below the horizon. Look to the north. We'll hope, though, that those G4 conditions stay around a little bit later so we can get it in that pitch dark sky at 6 or 7 o'clock tonight. Send me the photos that you have. We'll be keeping on Aurora watch into our night. Listen up, Rutgers alum and football fans. It's meteorologist Joe Martucci. Located just 500 yards from SHI Stadium, the St. George Greek Orthodox Church has over 500 parking spots to get your tailgate started. It's safe, easily accessible to River Road, and my favorite part, has plenty of bathrooms. Purchase passes at RutgersParking.com. That's RutgersParking.com. And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Title Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition in conjunction with our broadcast partner at Tri-X 57. I am here with Palma Shiles, Dan Skeldon. I'm Joe Martucci. The gang is back together. Palma, good to see you again.
Glad to be here.
So we're getting into, middle of November here. For me, and this is maybe I'm already doing my one thing I can't stop talking about, but I am in the middle of ShopRite free turkey season right now. You spend $400, you get that free turkey. Dan, I know you're in Allentown. You guys have ShopRites there? What do you have Weiss? What's going on in Allentown?
We have ShopRites. We have my favorite grocery store. It's in upstate New York, Wegmans.
Yes, I know.
We have Central and North Jersey as well. So yeah, we have a plethora of them, and yeah, we're doing the turkey points as well, though.
Okay. Did anyone get the turkey yet? Are we at turkey status? No,
not yet.
Well, I am not hosting because I'm moving soon, so I'm off the hook this year.
Okay. Or you get like the lasagna, like the big lasagna, the hen, I think, whatever. Anyway, nothing related to Title Flooding Talk there, but congratulations on your move, Palma. And if you need any help moving, I guess our Title Flooding Talk family is here to help.
And at the very least, Palma will give you a nice moving forecast. So we'll make sure moving days like
that would be great.
Right.
That would be great.
So our guest for tonight, he might be able to help Palma out. He is related to Palma's first cousin, but he is on the other side of the country. So he has a good excuse to, hey, listen, I can't really help you move. We're here with Jesse Peary. He is the chief of the Stinson Beach, California Fire Department. Part of the reason why we've been doing this on Zoom, Title Flooding Talk, is so we can go national with our guests, and doesn't get much national than the other side of the coast. So Jesse, welcome to the show, and tell everybody where Stinson Beach is in California.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joe, Dan, Palma. It's great to be on. Stinson Beach is just north of San Francisco. It's a small little coastal town, about 45 minutes across the Golden Gate Bridge, down a windy road. Very, very sleepy in the winter times, and then in the summer times, it's the Bay Area's playground. We get everybody from all the major Bay Area cities out for a nice long stretch of coastal beach out here in California.
So, so being related to Palma and having this seasonal, shift here in Stinson Beach sounds like pretty similar to the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, very much so. Well, my mom was a resident of Ventnor, so she moved halfway across the country, but she couldn't get that far from the ocean. So she found the very next best thing out here in California.
Awesome, awesome. Well, great. Well, we're really looking forward to having you here and chatting with you over the next half hour or so. Tell us about your role as fire chief and how it could relate to the tidal flooding, that you do see on the West Coast.
Yeah. So for us, we're pretty much the only governmental organization in our little coastal community, and so that means we assume all risk responsibility. So when we say we're the fire district, we're much more than that. We respond to medical aids, structure fires, vegetation fires, and over the last several years, it has morphed into storm response and storm surge. Ironically, this morning, this wasn't planned out, I don't think, by you guys, but we have king tides in our community, and we had significant flooding events.
We had nothing to do with it. That
Yeah, it was perfect timing.
Yeah.
So it's very much in our wheelhouse and part of our response, and we develop lots of plans around it. And our little town is unfortunately getting hit and anticipated to get even harder by some tidal flooding.
What are the?
Now I'm sure where you are. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, go ahead, Paula.
You're known for both like wildfires and then also coastal tidal flooding. So how do you balance planning for both of them? And do you think you're more prepared for one or the other?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say that we're more prepared for either. We have a hill to a mountain behind us and the ocean in front of us, and different seasons and different changes bring their individual unique challenges. We just have to be ready at a moment's notice for either. Luckily, they tend to be seasonal, so we get to shift our wildland fire gear off the rig, and transition to our water gear in the wintertime. But as what happened down in LA last year, wildfires becoming more of a year-round threat than it has in the past.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Jesse, like, what are the seasons? Like on the East Coast, we have hurricane season, and then it shifts to nor'easter season. So kind of tidal flooding is a year-round threat.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of alluded to there, wildfires becoming a little more of a year-round threat. What's the storm and the tidal flooding threat like on the West Coast?
Yeah, I would say it's more consistent in the winter time is our bigger threat, and that's when we have our winter storms come through. The atmospheric rivers have increased in number and in intensity over the last, I'd say, 5 years. And so if you tie that in with our king tide season, which is notoriously November through February, when those all align, that's when we get our biggest significant environmental impacts.
I'm just kind of looking at the climate of Stinson Beach here, and it says that you average 0 inches of precipitation in July, which is just wild. I can't imagine averaging 0. But then in December, 8.3 inches, 7.7 inches precipitation in January, and 7.8 in February. I guess what I'm trying to get at is sunny day tidal flooding. That flooding that doesn't have anything to do with the storm here. Is that something that you see too, or is it really something that's really during the winter? I know you said the winter season's more of that season, but do you get any of that flooding during the summer, or is it's no? Okay.
No, it's rarely. It's occasionally I'd say we might have some high tide events, but in my experience, it's all during winter and storm season, and when they kind of collide. Yeah, because we don't have rains in the summer. We don't have and we don't have our storm surge, which is another element that brings up that level of water.
What's that like? Not raining for like 6 weeks. Like what's life like during those 6 weeks?
I would say Stinson, as opposed to the rest of California, is very unique as we get the marine layer that comes in. So we still get a lot of moisture in those summer months. It's just not traditional rain. But it's summertime in California. It's exactly what you think.
Car washes must be buzzing at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So is it easier, Jesse, to, because the tidal flooding, those type of events hit during the winter season, probably less population, probably like, locals, we have the problem on the East Coast where sometimes the tourists are as knowledgeable about tidal flooding as the locals are. You guys kind of don't have that problem, right? Because during your peak season, the weather is quiet.
Exactly. And I couldn't imagine how you guys do it, because we get influxes of 8 to 10,000 people to our town that has 700 houses, right? So to imagine having to coordinate that transient population is just a lot. So yeah, wintertime usually, depending on the season, I'd say we get a lot of it's a short-term rental community as well, and so we have a larger influx, but not those day visitors like you think of classic Ventnor or Atlantic City beaches like you guys have.
All right, we're going to take a brief break here. We'll come back on the other side with Jesse Peary on Tidal Flooding Talk. Hello, welcome back. You are watching Tidal Flooding Talk, and we are brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, who would like to remind our viewers that flood hazards act fast. They're not just an inconvenience. Floodwaters can cause fires, contamination, and serious structural damage. If severe flooding is expected and officials recommend evacuation, don't wait, just go. Have an emergency plan in place, prepare for the worst, and prioritize safety above all else. Which I'm sure Jesse can speak on, because, I mean, I don't know what it would be like evacuating Stinson Beach, or even advising people, you know, that it could get to that. What is your experience with your residents or even visitors if it were to come down to that?
Yeah, I think our biggest threat is when a couple of different factors align, and that is swell direction. So we're getting some pretty intense waves from storms off coast, and I mentioned that storm surge, which elevates already high tides a little bit higher, and king tides. And unfortunately, over twice in the last 5 years, we've had to place evacuation orders and warnings for a large area of our community. So it is a real thing. We have pre-plans for it. We have our messaging that goes out to the community via various sources. And like I said, a lot of folks are short-term renters, and they're not prepared, like a local living down by the beach would be.
But do you get much resistance from your locals if there is an evacuation order?
Yeah, I wouldn't say resistance. I think a lot of people respect our knowledge of the water and respect our forecasting, and they've seen what it can do. So in every evacuation, you're not going to get 100% compliance, but I would say for the most part, we've had some pretty good people respecting our orders.
And I see, Jesse, I'm just kind of familiarizing myself via Google Maps where you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
How is the evacuation like? Are you pretty like one way in, one way out, like some of our barrier islands along the Jersey Shore, or do you have a little more luxury of multiple routes in and out, and maybe a little more time therefore, and a couple more flexibility in evacuating people in the worst case scenario?
Yeah, down by the beach, there's a whole network of specific areas that is one way in, one way out. And if you can look on that map, it's a peninsula, and basically all the way towards the land end of the peninsula is where we get our greatest flood threat. So our situation is we get storm surge flooding from the ocean and tidal flooding from what we call the lagoon, but I imagine it would be Bayside for you guys. And that pinch point becomes a very big reality for the folks in the homes living in that area. But what it also does is it isolates the entire peninsula distal to that, from emergency response being able to come in, from ambulances being able to take people out, and during these events, like I said, they're storm events. So we have to develop contingency plans to get people over that area. And we've developed some creative ones. One is via the beach, which surprisingly sometimes has access when the street doesn't. And another one is inflatable boats that we will pull people across the floodwaters with.
Really? Tell us more about the inflatable boats.
Yeah, so we have a robust water rescue program because we respond to all the water emergencies. And a couple years ago, after we've had some significant floodings in that pinch point, it's probably a 50 to 100-foot stretch that gets flooded that vehicles sometimes can't travel through. And so we place boats on either side, and we can shuttle people across if they were ever in need of an emergency.
Wow.
And we've done it. I can't say that there's been critical patients, but there's been some minor stuff that we've shuttled people across before.
Sure.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you're kind of the only government agency in Stinson Beach. So is there anyone that, like, other agency outside of Stinson Beach that you do work with or prepare
Yeah.
for a coastal storm?
So we're a fire district, meaning we're hyper local to Stinson. Taxpayers kind of pay us directly for fire and emergency response. We're technically a part of unincorporated Marin County. So all of the land that we serve is essentially the responsibility of Marin County. They just don't have resources in the community, right? So when it comes to potential sea level rise flooding and tidal flooding, we work with them very closely to develop our plan. And we, as a community, have developed a long range planning committee where we're engaging with the county to identify steps and mitigations moving forward as we continue to see increase of threat from sea level rise.
Yeah, you say unincorporated community. That's such like a foreign word for us here in Jersey, because every square inch of New Jersey is owned by a municipality.
A city.
So
Yeah.
Like every square inch in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So like when you say, like, it's just like a weird concept. Like even for me, like I think I was like, I remember, this is off topic, but I was like 16 years old. I was talking to somebody from Iowa who was like my age, and he was talking about going to his, he was like, how do you ride your bike to your friend's house in the next town? I'm like, I don't know. It's just in the next town. He's like, that's like 10 miles away. I'm like,
yeah,
New Jersey. It's like literally just you cross. You wouldn't even know if there wasn't a sign. So it's just interesting there. But anyway, let me get back on topic here. When you talk about, obviously you're on the West Coast, right? Is there anything that you take from what's just being done on the East Coast to the West Coast in terms of emergency response, and then vice versa? Is there something that you see that happens, with emergency response on the East Coast? You're like, why don't they do it this way?
No, I think it's really interesting because the East Coast, specifically with fire, has a robust volunteer response model, and that's what we are. So I think when I look to the East Coast, I look at them as leaders in normalizing what volunteer response can do for the communities. I would say less in an emergency response capacity and more in tidal flooding. The last time I was in Ventnor, which was a couple of years ago, I noticed the dune restoration underneath the boardwalk. That probably was a long time ago, and I'm just a little bit out of the loop. But that is one of the biggest recommendations that we have from the studies that we have, is increased living shore and increased dunes to combat some of the coastal storm surge that we get. And so it's definitely a strategy that is being considered in our community.
Good, Paul.
Yeah, I think, well, over here, I think that there was resistance to the dunes for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
my mom hates it.
by the DEP, yeah. And the argument was that we get mostly like bay flooding. But I mean, when there's a hurricane, that ocean, I mean, if there's video of it from Sandy and it's like, I mean, I would want a dune in front of my house.
Yeah.
Might be a hot take for some people.
Yeah, well, people always want to